they're delivering a lot of those 30 billion pages as static pages. So they're basically doing what, a really awesome kick-butt 1994 web architecture. And we're trying to deliver dynamic pages, and it's a different scale. And but there's a lot of techniques that we're able to take advantage of, and so there things like being able to use this sort of architecture. I'll get into a little bit more, but being able to add a caching layer, being able to add opcode caching, be able to do SSL acceleration. This is a big deal with the what's the name of the Firefox plugin that just came out? Firesheep, right? So it can sniff out your cookies. So if you're not on a VPN right now and you're at a conference, then it's probably got your Drupal.org login account and your Facebook account and your Gmail account right now. Just let me know if you've done it already. And then you can use tools like Varnish, which is a great anonymous caching layer, and Nginx, which some people are starting to use as a web server, but is also acts as a great load balancer. We can do database performance and tuning, and so there's a lot of stuff from taking all the automated things like views, which get these gigantic queries, and then being able to optimize them at the database level. We're starting to see people put more and more Drupal sites by default into Memcache and have a series of bins set up, one for sessions, one for general. What else what are the 3 common Memcache bins? What?
Page filter, menu.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, setting up based on the size of your site. And then we're starting to do some really good solutions out there. If you haven't checked out Chapter 3's Pantheon right now, it's going to be a really low-cost, highly optimized stack built by David Strauss and a few of the guys from Chapter 3, and that's a really incredible stack for, it's basically going to blow away the low end of the hosting market. I mean, anybody who's selling basically anything between, $50 and $150 in hosting per month right now is just going to disappear when the stack comes out, in my opinion. There's just going to be no reason to stay in a standard hosting stack. And then there's also this high-end stack, Acquia Hosting. I'll talk a little bit about this. So we built this stack based on AWS. We're largely targeting the high end of the market. What you want to be able to tell people is that it can scale and you can get enterprise services. This is a really big deal in organizations. Many organizations have custom stacks. It's not uncommon for me to get a phone call for somebody to tell me, we're paying $1 million in hosting for a site that delivers 10,000 pages per month.
Oh.
Okay? They can go to GoDaddy for $4.95 based on their enterprise requirements and security requirements. They have to pay $1 million a year. Right? It's got absolutely nothing to do with hardware. It's got to do with Oracle licensing fees, Cold Fusion licensing fees, backups, redundant data centers, 24/7, network operations employees standing there watching that site to guarantee that it's up on a regular basis. And they're looking at these bills and saying, where do I go? How do I compress this? Can I drop this cost so that I can recover? I can build a new site in Drupal, add more features, deploy it, host it, 24/7, security, and get it all done from 1 year's hosting bill. And that's the challenge out there. And in a lot of cases, we're starting to do it. Okay? So you get hosted on AWS, it's SAS 70 certified. Amazon Web Services now deployed in the government sector, something called certification and accreditation at the low level. Okay? They've done several of these. One of them is a website for the Department of Homeland Security that we're hosting there. They're also in the process of deploying something called the certification and accreditation moderate level, which is pretty significant and would be very impressive. The US federal government has an organization called NIST. I was there on Friday, National Institutes of Standards and Technology, and they basically published a series of documents called FISMA, and in particular FISMA 800-53, which is basically a document that says, if you're going to host any application on the internet, or any application at all, please tell us how high the Dobermans are. Please tell us how high the fences are at the data center. Please tell us what the biometrics scans are like on the entry doors. Please tell us how high the cages are between the different racks. Please tell us how many inches between the racks. Please tell us if somebody can get access to one cage and reach around and touch the other cage. And that's the level of thing, and they work all the way up the stack to Drupal. And what's important is that you get the message out. If you find yourself, and you will find yourself in a federal or a state or a government site, they're going to start asking these questions. And you need to be able to tell them, Drupal has been certified by the Department of Defense at the FISMA Moderate. It's been done for White House, and it's been done for 55 sites now and 500. And if you ever need any help on this, there's a number of top security experts out there who are now available to do full audits all the way down through the stack to basically write the CNA documentation to get out there to prove that Drupal can be deployed in the most secure environments possible. Okay, so what they're looking for is they're looking for complete redundancy in hardware. Because if you've only run 30 or 50 servers in your life, then you think servers stay up. If you've run 500 or 1,000 servers, you basically realize that you have a server failure per day. Okay, that's just the state of hardware, and that's why the cloud's so important. So you basically need 2 load balancers in case one of them goes down. You need multiple web nodes, both to scale horizontally in terms of traffic, but also to be able to deal with redundancy in case one of those goes down, which means you got to add a network file system between your servers, and they mostly all suck. It means that, and you introduce a network file system, which is a single point of failure, so if that system goes down, all of your web servers go down, and that's terrible. You've got to be able to add, tuning and caching and optimization on your web node. So you've got to add opcodes, you've got to add mem cache, you've got to make sure you have the right libraries added to Apache and the right libraries added to PHP. And if you've got too many, then you're going to consume too many resources, and you've got to deal with how many threads you can run in parallel until you have to add in more servers. You've got to have nightly backups of your file systems so that customers can get them. They basically are often going to want to make sure that those things are redundant. So they're going to basically say, if you're in New York City, it's not good enough to back up to New Jersey. You've got to back up from New York City to San Francisco. You've got to back up to the Midwest as well. And so these are the things that people are looking. The nice thing is, Amazon's got S3 service, so it does back up to San Francisco every night. It does back up to Virginia from the New Jersey area. And so that has a huge impact in terms of your ability to convince people that you can deploy Drupal and make sure that if their site goes down, if their data center goes down, and we catch that Linode's data center went down last night. Keep a list of every data center that goes down. People think data centers don't go down. Entire data centers fail on a regular basis. And you need to have a conversation with your customers. Are they willing to be offline for 8 or 12 hours? If they're not, then they need to do multiple data centers to be able to deploy. Okay. And then what we do is we do master failover, passive master databases, and then we back up all of that. And we can launch a new cluster within minutes, and all of this be automatically configured and stood back up, and then import the data, the SVN, and stuff like that. So if you find yourself needing a service like that, I'm happy to talk to you. Let's talk a little bit about security. This is a great quote. Continuous and broad peer review enabled by publicly available source code supports software reliability and security efforts. We fought really hard with the White House legal team. They wanted to launch the Drupal site without telling anybody. And we assured them it would take about approximately 10 seconds, even though we were all under an NDA, that for the community to figure out that whitehouse.gov was running Drupal when they launched the new site. So we worked back and forth very hard with them to basically get them to do a press release. But we couldn't tell them what to put in the press release. Much to my pride, I guess I don't know what the word is, but they basically said we're going to launch Drupal and our press release is going to focus on 2 things. The flexibility of the platform, but most importantly, security. They felt that by launching Drupal, because it was open source and there were so many eyes on it, that it was a more secure platform. And we've worked with, and we had to go through that with them. We had to talk to the FBI, we had to talk to the Secret Service, we had to get an internal audit done for that particular configuration of the site. And we were lucky enough to have people from the National Security Agency show up at DrupalCon DC. And they're willing to basically dedicate resources to do security audits of major open source projects that are getting used by government. So being able to bring all that together, having the Department of Defense basically saying this, and having the White House issue press releases is very compelling when you're trying to sell Drupal into the enterprise. Just to give you some stuff, some background on it. So I coordinate the team. Heine is the leader. He's the security expert. I am knowledgeable about security. I'm not a security coder expert. We've got 35 members of the security team. We publish releases on Wednesdays. We basically, unlike most other projects that are out there, they'll work on the security of the core of Drupal, or the core of their project, but they won't do anything with Contrib. So Joomla doesn't do, to my knowledge, does not do security releases for their contributed modules. WordPress does not do security releases for their contributed modules, although they know it's a major issue and they're working on it and they're starting to audit patterns. So the fact that we're willing to say real Drupal sites have lots of modules and are insecure, that the fact that our team is willing to look at all those modules, take in reports, and if we find a security report, we'll validate it and then we'll issue a release is a huge, huge benefit. And security ultimately is really not about having secure software. And if you find somebody challenging you, because you will find people evaluating Drupal, will stand up and say to you, I read on this security website that Drupal has a lot of vulnerabilities. In fact, Drupal is one of the top security vulnerability reporting projects in the world. Right? We have the pride of being listed just underneath Microsoft Windows in terms of total number of security vulnerabilities. And you've got to be in a position when you're dealing with these enterprises and they're saying there's no way we're installing this stuff, you've got to go in and say security is a process. Okay? Security is not about secure code. Security is about having teams in place, understanding risk analysis, having a process where people do go out and look at the way people are really running sites and pushing out that stuff. I'll give you a good example. There was have to be, okay, are we recording? We're recording. We're recording. Okay, So I know this guy, and he had a site, and he got some help from some Drupal experts.